Alright, the 6 built-in automated response triggers. What you're about to learn now is the groundwork for how to do manipulation and for a lot of the tactics and techniques you will learn in Module 4 later on. These principles were originally discovered by Robert Cialdini and are explained in depth in his classic book, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. However, what I'm going to do here is describe how they relate to picking up women. And that's what we all want, ain't that right? So, what are these triggers and why do they work? First of all, you need to understand something about human nature, and that is that we humans, regardless of our intelligence or differences to the animal kingdom, are in essence just another animal. And like all other animals, we have certain automated behavioral responses to certain and very specific events and triggers. A hen, for example, has the cheep cheep sound of her babies as a trigger for an automated response. This cheep cheep sound triggers her motherly affection and care, and a baby chicken that does not make the sound does not get fed and taken care of. This is because only the healthy chickens make this sound. They did an interesting experiment to prove this. Some scientists created a stuffed replica of a polecat, which is a natural enemy to chickens by the way, and placed it in a close proximity to the mother turkey. At first the turkey attacked the fake polecat by pecking and clawing it. However, when they installed a speaker in the stuffed polecat that played a recorded cheep cheep sound, the mother turkey not only did not attack it, but it also took care of it like its own. As soon as they stopped the tape, however, the mother attacked the polecat again. What can we get from all this is that turkeys are obviously a bunch of automated animals. They react solely on specific triggers. But researchers has now found that this kind of behavior is not only prevalent in turkeys, but in practically all other animals as well. Yes, even humans. These triggers affect everything in our behavior, even the mating process itself. Can you guess now why females respond well sexually to an alpha male? Because it's an automated response, and there's just no escaping it. And we're going to get more into this in Module 4. Now, however, let's talk about the 6 major automated human response triggers and how you can take advantage of them when you're trying to get laid. And note, by the way, these principles are not about attraction in themselves. They are just principles, if used correctly, that will open the woman up and make her susceptible to your seduction or manipulation later on. Basically, before you can understand how to actually attract a woman and get her in bed, you must have a basic understanding of human nature. To understand someone else, you have to first understand yourself. And that's what this is all about. So let's get into it. Here they are. Number 1, reciprocation. The first principle is that of reciprocation. It is one of the most powerful of them all. And this is how it works. By doing someone a favor, that person will automatically feel obligated to return the favor in some way, shape, or form. And many times, a very small initial favor can be enough to get a lot of things back in return. This principle is widely used by various companies and organizations, with Hare Krishna just coming to mind. They stand in the street and they give away flowers to bypassers. Obviously, they give them away for free. The trick is, however, the ones who accepts the flowers will most of the time donate money to them. And the free gift, the flower, triggered the gift receiver's reciprocity switches, and they felt obligated to return the favor. And how much will they give? Anything from $1 to $100, depending on how much they were affected by it. How much was the flower worth? Probably not more than a couple of cents. You see what I mean? It is not just the Hare Krishnas who knows about this automated human response trigger, however. There are many more who uses it as well. Maybe you had a friend sometime in the past who all of a sudden did a favor for you, only to ask for a much bigger favor in return later on. They might not have known what they did consciously, but they sure knew it unconsciously. Actually, I don't know how you got this course, Maybe you found out about it from reading an article of mine or a free report. Either way, that's the reciprocity rule taking place as well. Well, not completely. Since you didn't talk to me in person, the effects from it were not as strong as they would have been if I had physically given you a free report or lecture in real life. Much of the reason for why you bought this course probably was because you actually enjoyed my content and you wanted to find out more. But still, the reciprocity rule probably still had some effect. Will you hate me for it now? Hopefully you won't. Even though this rule works, that doesn't mean using it is a bad thing. I believe that whatever the amount you pay for this, you're going to get 100 times the value back. And that's why I also feel good about using these manipulative tactics. By the way, everyone around us uses manipulation. Even your mother will try to persuade you when she wants you to do something. When you were a kid, best believe you were under heavy manipulation from your parents or parent to make you into the person they felt was best. They told you all the negative consequences of certain behaviors and acts, and the positives from others. All manipulation. Does that mean that everyone is a manipulative person? Yes, everyone is. Some are better at it than others though, but there's no shame in it whatsoever. It's basic human nature. When we want something from somebody else, which we always do, if we didn't, there will be no reason to interact with them whatsoever. We use manipulation. Simple as that. And I know the word manipulation has a sort of dark feeling to it. Would you feel better about it if I call it persuasion? It's the same thing. Everyone uses it and will continue to do so forever. So if everyone uses it, even you, wouldn't you just want to get really good at it so that you can better use it to your advantage? I think so too. Back to reciprocation. How can you use this principle when picking up women? If I would guess, I would think that the first thing that came to your mind when trying to connect this principle to pickup is, I'll just buy women drinks and expensive gifts and they'll sleep with me. Actually, this doesn't work, even though you might think it should. And why is that? It does spark on the reciprocity switch, but it also sparks on a few other switches as well. And these ones are rather negative. The reason why buying women drinks doesn't work is because you come across as desperate and also of lower social value than her. To her, your action of buying her a drink, whether it was you or her who suggested it doesn't really matter, will be seen as an obvious attempt of trying to manipulate her into sleeping with you. That tells her another thing about you, that you feel inferior to her since you need to buy her stuff to get her to like and accept you. And for this reason, I don't buy any kind of gifts to women as long as I'm not in a relationship with them. Then, I might treat them like I treat my friends, with great generosity. But to a stranger in a bar, absolutely not. After all, what has she done for me? Why would I give someone I barely know a gift? If you wouldn't buy a random guy in a bar a drink, don't buy women one either. So, how could you use this trigger to your advantage? Instead of drinks, play on her emotions. Spark some really high positive emotions in her, and she will want to reciprocate by doing the same for you. And how do you do that? There are lots of ways to do so. One is to make her feel beautiful or sexy. However, if the woman you're talking to is a stunner, which means she probably knows that already, you shouldn't take that approach. Instead, instill some negative emotions first, then reward her for good behavior later on. And you can do this by using qualification, and I'll tell you exactly how to do that step by step in Module 4. Or make her feel intelligent or interesting as a human being. But for now, just be aware of the principle. We're still just laying the basic foundation here. How to do everything in a more technical sense we'll get into later on in this course. Okay? Number 2, social proof. The next automated trigger is social proof. And when picking up women, this rule is very important. Since human beings are a species that naturally lives and survives in groups, we are naturally inclined to listen to what others have to say, and we judge other people depending on their status in the social hierarchy. To women, This rule is even more important than for men, and they many times choose their partners solely on their men's reputation and status alone. How can we use this to our advantage? By coming across as people with high social status. And how exactly would you do that? You communicate high social status by the clothes you wear, the language you use, how you carry yourself, etc. Also, you do so by being seen in groups of other high value people. How to do all this we're going to talk about in Module 4. Again, this is just an introduction to these principles, and we will talk much more in depth about them later on. Authority, number 3. Authority is another trigger feature that triggers an automated behavioral response in women. When you come across as an authoritative figure, she will respond by getting attracted and actually wanting to have your kids. Now, that doesn't mean that every single woman is going to sleep with you, let alone carry your babies. However, the wanting feeling inside of her will still be triggered. This is why women want alpha males. Alpha males are authoritative figures. If we wanted to analyze why this rule exists in the first place, we have to look at how our society functioned thousands of years ago. Back then, we lived in tribes, and having kids with the alpha male meant survival, both for the woman herself and for the kids. You can see this rule working not only with natural alpha males, because usually most guys will only be seen as the alpha in very specific situations or environments. For example, why do you think the boss of a company has such an easy time getting laid with his employees and secretaries? It's not just for the potential pay raise, trust me. It's because in that specific environment, the boss is the alpha, and that triggers her natural behavioral response by getting attracted towards him. Does the guy have to be a true alpha male for it to work? No, just the illusion of it works just as well. Can you see the similarity between humans and turkeys now? Again, in Module 4 we will go much more in depth of how to project yourself as an authoritative figure. Number 4, scarcity. Scarcity is another trigger that works nearly every single time. As human beings, we are naturally inclined to want things that are in short demand. Numerous scientific tests of this has been done throughout the years. One experiment was done by a college professor at the University of Phoenix in Arizona. He took 50 or so candidates for an experiment. He told them that the test was a market research trying to figure out what kind of cookie tasted the best. All of the lab rats were given 2 bowls of cookies. One where the cookie jar was completely full, and one where there was only 2 cookies left. The trick was, however, that the cookies were exactly the same. The lab rats were then asked to taste both cookies and then write down which one they liked the best. And what they found out was that 84% of the people liked the cookie that was in the almost empty jar. And what does this tell us? The cookies were the same, there couldn't possibly be any difference between them, but still one of them was a clear winner. And why? Because it was in short supply, and thus it unconsciously tells us that it was in high demand as well. If something is in short supply, we want it. This is why the classic jealousy tactic of getting together with another girl when you just got dumped works so well to bring your ex-girlfriend or boyfriend back. It's the scarcity trigger taking place. We don't want what we can have easily, we only want what we cannot have. How can you apply this principle when picking up women? By takeaways, ultimatums, and by using qualification. And I'm going to explain how to do these step by step in Module 4. Number 5, liking. The 5th principle that Dr. Robert Cialdini discovered was liking. People are generally more open to your persuasive techniques if they like you first. Obvious, but not one to miss. And even though being friendly in itself doesn't get you laid, that's how you end up in the friend zone, it does help you when you're trying to manipulate her. Don't try to impress the woman you're talking to just to make her to like you, however, because doing so will only backfire. Just know that by getting a decent connection and understanding between the two of you, it will help your seduction greatly. Women will sleep with you if you combine liking with the other trigger features. However, she will not sleep with you based on liking alone. Number 6, commitment and consistency. The last principle is that of commitment and consistency. People have a natural tendency to A, want to complete a task that they have started, and B, to be consistent of their behavior and beliefs. This is why trying to convert a church full of Christians by pointing out obvious loopholes in their beliefs most of the time won't work, because the people in the church have openly expressed their beliefs. If you were to challenge those beliefs, regardless of how logical or strong your evidence would be, they wouldn't listen. The pain of realizing that they were wrong is simply too big to do so, and therefore these people will disregard everything you have to say. But this principle can be used to your advantage as well, especially when picking up women, and I'll get to that in a moment. First, I want to give you an example of this principle in action. In 1983, a study was done and published in the magazine Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin, and it proves how powerful this principle is. For the study, an Israeli research team asked half of the residents in an apartment complex to sign a petition stating their support for the construction of a recreation center for the handicapped nearby. A petition means they just wanted them to put their name on a list to show that they were in favor of this construction. 2 weeks later, the researchers returned. This time, they asked all residents, even those who they had not asked to sign the petition earlier, to donate money towards the center. According to the study, among the residents who had been previously asked to sign the petition supporting the center, the donation rate was 92%, compared to just over 50% among those who had not been previously asked to sign the petition. Thus, it is significantly more likely that somebody will say yes to a request that will make of them in the future if we just first ask them to take a small step that is logically consistent with the request we'll make of them later, to quote Dr. Cialdini. This is what we call the foot in the door technique, and it is widely used by door-to-door salesmen. The reason that the people who signed a petition 2 weeks earlier to the actual donation donated almost twice as much money was because they wanted to be consistent with their previous behavior. And so now you're wondering, how can you adopt this principle to picking up women? You do it by starting out small. For example, you can ask the girl, "Are you an adventurous person?" If she says yes, then you ask, "Since you're such an adventurous person, that means you go after what you want, am I right?" If she says yes, then simply ask, "Do you like sex?" Then, a while later, you ask, "What do you think of me? Do you find me sexy?" And hopefully, she says yes. By asking these questions, you don't have to ask them straight one after the other. You can mix them up. You will have made her publicly admit that A, she's adventurous and goes after what she wants, B, she likes sex, and C, she thinks you're sexy. And now do the math. If she has admitted all these things to you, the chances of her getting in bed with you later on will rise. Why? Simply because she wants to be consistent to what she has said. If she wouldn't sleep with you, that means she's a liar and dishonest. Now, of course, we know that women generally have no problem with being liars, but if they are publicly found out about, that's another story. Using leading questions like this and taking advantage of the consistency principle is how you trap someone into doing what you want. And we're going to go much more deeply into how to set this trap up later on. But remember, we're not doing anything unethical here. After all, it was she who said she was adventurous, and it was she who said you were sexy. You're just using this principle to get that out of her and to take action on what she really wants deep down. And there's nothing wrong with that. In the next video, we're gonna go into module 2. We're not done with module 1. So the next video is all about the power principles, and I think this is gonna be a very good video, and it's gonna open your eyes to some new things you probably have never thought of before. So I'll see you in the next video.